days out from the election, so that's very interesting. There are advanced polls this weekend, and there are long lineups, according to people who are talking. Holly Doan was asking for reports because I guess she'd been hearing that there were long lineups, and lots of people replying that, oh yeah, long lineups, no idea what the holdup is. So interesting stuff going on there. Deal for tariffs on Sunday from China. Very interesting. Trump, or there are people tweeting out that potentially there's been a deal reached, or there could be a deal announced as early as Sunday. So that would change things again. And so were we just getting used to what was going on? Oh, well, too late. An innocent woman's been killed in Hamilton due to stray gunfire. So the violence from Toronto is spilling into the Hamilton GTA. Long wait. Oh yeah. Conor McGregor is talking about Ireland. So I've got that closer to the end of the show. He says it's a small island. Like, do you think you can try and take it from us and then get away and just walk out? I don't know. It'll be very interesting to see how this all plays out. And the elites want a violent response. And it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be very, very interesting. That's for darn sure. Poilievre says he'll restore free speech in Canada explicitly. So I'll show you that. It's during a scrum that happened after the French debate, but during the English debate, too dangerous for scrums. Very interesting that they made these excuses and blamed Rebel News. Rebel News is escorted out of the media room and assaulted, according to Alex Zoltan. And there's other updates from the debate. So there's lots to get to. Let's get to it. First, we're talking about elections. And here's Holly Doan. She says, long lineups at your advanced poll this weekend. Please take a photo and tag me. It's interesting that advanced polling is Easter weekend. I mean, good, I guess, but also kind of weird. Here's Canada is compromised. Says, we waited 20 minutes in Moncton. The line never moved an inch, so we left. I have no idea what the problem was, but we weren't the only ones leaving. 1 hour lineup in Calicum Beach. I don't know if it's normal or not. No pics. Voted this morning in Calgary, Nose Hill. No big lineup, but I asked the worker, how's the turnout? She said, very steady, more than they were expecting. Hope it continues across Canada. Be very interesting to see how this all plays into everything. Ian says, most of them have the same official agent. So this is a picture of Poilievre's ballot, right? So Brian Passafume says he just finished taking part in the advanced polls in Carleton. Holy cow, that's a long ballot. Returning officer told me they have special trucks in the ridings this weekend doing nothing but replacing and replenishing stuffed ballot boxes because the ballots are so big. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages long with candidates on either side. There's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, I think 22, roughly 22 candidates per ballot. Okay, that's 11 down one side and then 11 down the other side. And so that's not an accident. They did the same thing to Maxime Bernier when he was running as well. This is not accidental. It is something they are doing on purpose to screw with Pierre Poilievre, possibly because they see him as a threat. And he's saying that he's not going to uphold the free speech stuff that they're trying to crack down on. So we'll see how it turns out. But I mean, that is a distinct difference between the Liberals and the Conservatives. Up till now, there hasn't been much of a difference. Brian Lilly says, yesterday I posted about the Liberal candidate in Leeds Granville musing about the carbon tax coming back. Now the Liberal candidate in Kelowna is doing the same. So they're talking about bringing the carbon tax back. Somebody says, do you think the carbon tax effective? He says, experts say it's really effective. So bring in the experts. We really want to hear what they have to say. No. If your whole argument is experts say, then I think that whole thing's invalid. Nope. After 2020, big fat nope. Not for me, dog.
Stephen, do you believe carbon taxes are an effective way to reduce emissions?
The experts say it is. Every expert on the planet has said it was the most cost-effective way to do this, and unfortunately,
to do this, what's this? Steal from your constituents on a trumped-up bullshit magic boogeyman, right? Ooh, yes, invisible air is making it much hotter. These wildfires are starting themselves because of the climate. Bullshit. Anyway, I move on. Brian Passafume says, new for me, a conservative government would do away with the Liberals' single-use plastic ban. Yay! This isn't about science, it's about symbolism and control, Poilievre said during a Friday press conference. Yep, I agree with that. And hopefully that happens. Cities Guelph specifically, went further when the plastic ban came out and started banning all kinds of plastics and went way further than the plastic ban needed to be. Utensils, all sorts of crazy stuff. And I'm finding now, actually, there's plastic straws making their way back into restaurants in Guelph. So that's, good news. But again, the zealotry of the municipalities is interesting because places in Vancouver or BC done the same thing, right? Like, here's the provincial law, but we're going to go 5 steps further. And it's anti-business, and it doesn't really help the environment, despite the virtue signaling they think they're doing. Michael Chong says, breaking, Liberal MP personally invited the head of illegal CCP police stations to an exclusive campaign dinner. Carney's Liberals are rolling out the red carpet for Beijing operatives who are attacking our sovereignty and intimidating Chinese Canadians. National Post says Liberal candidate invited head of suspected secret Chinese police station to campaign event. Wild, right? Like, absolutely wild, blatant, right? And they don't seem to care what anybody thinks. So isn't that weird? Like, don't you think they would care? I don't know. Larry Brock says the Liberals' costly new packaging regulations are a hidden food tax, and hardworking Canadians will pay the price. From grocery bags to takeout containers, these rules punish restaurants, grocers, and low-income families already struggling to make ends meet. Conservatives will axe the food packaging tax, stop new red tape on labeling, scrap the Liberal plastics ban, protect affordability for Canadians. It's common sense. Let's bring it home. Conservatives will axe the food tax, blah, blah, blah. So scrap proposed new labeling and packaging requirements. Interesting. It's meaningful to small businesses, so that's something. Larry Brock says, unbelievable, 70% of these offenders are out on bail. Guelph's making the news nationally again. Yay! So the city council wanted to crack down on the criminality in downtown because people were openly using drugs, and it was feeling more like a prison yard than it was feeling like a downtown core. Maybe that was just me. I don't know. But nobody was going downtown because, well, you were worried about running into somebody who was high on something, or like there were working girls propositioning people in the mid-afternoon. Like, I was walking back to my car on Cork Street and somebody said, hey, are you looking for a good time? And I was like, it's 4:00 in the afternoon. Like, there are high school students walking around here, lady. Like, what are you doing? That's crazy town, right? So I don't think I was as affable about it, but still, right? Like, people avoided downtown because it was getting bad, and being worse, right? It was terrible. And there are a lot of soup kitchen type things, free meals, and free injection sites. They're all concentrated downtown. All the money's downtown for that kind of stuff. So it concentrates people down there. The city of Guelph pays for taxis from the hotel to the safe injection site twice a day and home for people who have free rent who have their rent paid for at the hotel. I don't know if that's still going on, but that was going on in 22, 23. I don't know if it's still happening. I don't know. My source was very, very explicit about how egregious this all is, and nobody seems to care. And it's like not an insignificant amount of money, right? So anyway, this is what's happening. Guelph today, the council passed, we're going to arrest these people who are openly using drugs downtown, and 70% of them are out on bail. Guelph today reporting over 100 people arrested since crackdown on open drug use began. Initiative focused on open drug use in downtown Guelph began in October, right? So yeah, all of the people who get arrested for doing things that are against the law and arrestable out on bail, 70% of them. So 70 people out of 100 people arrested. Is that helping downtown? I went to a Storm game and things seemed more normal, but it's one of those things. I mean, it's going to get warmer. Are the tents going to return? There's all sorts of questions. Raw and Unfiltered says, breaking, Toronto Dominion TD Bank shuts down account linked to pro-Beijing influence group and former Liberal MP Han Dong. This is on the 16th of April. I just missed this. And I thought, this is pretty interesting news because it's about China, about the Chinese infiltration, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't think that we as citizens choosing the next leader of Canada, number one, I don't know that we're actually choosing the next leader of Canada. Number two, I don't know that we're asking the right questions, right? Greg's asking the right questions. World Sikh Organization, anyone? But I think we're playing a different game. Anyway, neither here nor there at this point in time. But it's just interesting to me that China has such influence. China has so much ability to fund candidates. This foreign influence is very concerning. And I think that's just one example. I think there were multiple examples. And I think those multiple examples are well hidden and can say it's racist if you point this out. Very racist. Don't notice that. That noticing is very uncomfortable for us, right? And so, man, it's so weird because like there is a big problem with China, but there are other egregious, massive red flags too, and nobody's really pointing that out. Nobody's really talking about it for fear of the racism bug, right? Like, don't want to be called racist. Anyway, back to this. This isn't just about banking, the Han-Dong thing. It's about Canada's national security, financial red flags, and the growing reach of foreign influence in our democracy. Liberals have been, and still are compromised. Toronto Dominion flagged the CTCCO, pro-PRC People's Republic of China group tied to China's United Front Works Department. United Front is the foreign interference kind of wet works department for suspected money laundering and pass-through activities. One of the CTCCO's leaders, Cheng Yi-Wei, I'm getting that terribly wrong, but sorry about that. Known for his ties to Beijing, sent $200,000 to Han-Dong's wife. TD then closed Han-Dong's joint account in 2023. No explanation was given. The case was reported to FinTrack. Meanwhile, Han-Dong resigned from the Liberal caucus amid allegations later dismissed by an inquiry that he told Chinese officials to delay releasing two Canadians, the two Michaels. So here is this. This is published from the Globe and Mail. TD Bank closes accounts of pro-China group ex-Liberal MP Han-Dong, records show. So the accounts were closed in 2023, but I guess the report just got out recently and the reporting came out about it just on the 16th. So wild and crazy stuff. But I think that we're seeing one side of the dice and there are six or more. And we're either not privy or that information's not interesting and or doesn't, the people who control that, they don't want us to know. And so we'll just stick with China and, not talking very much about the other things. And I think the other things are just as eyebrow raising and maybe more important. Mel Jo Lee says, how can we trust a conservative government to get to NATO's 2% by 2030 when defense spending was less than 1% of GDP when Pierre Poilievre was the last to minister? I think that's disingenuous, right? Like, I think that the world's changed drastically since the last time that the conservatives were in power. And so, although it is a good question, why has Canada been shirking its responsibility for decades with regards to defense spending? I mean, why is that, right? Good question. And why do we have so much dang money to send to Ukraine? Because we shouldn't, right? By all rights, we really shouldn't. So it's weird. It's weird that we have all this money to send to Ukraine, but we can't meet our basic NATO spending commitments, right? Like, that's poor. That's pretty bad. That's like going out for dinner every night, but not being quite able to make your rent every month. And your landlord knows because he also goes out for dinner every night. And he's like, man, how come they can afford to go out for dinner every night, but they can't afford rent? Like, maybe don't go out for dinner every night and you'll be able to afford rent, you idiots, right? So it's one of those things. Here's Daisy Media. This is interesting. And apparently Mark Carney has removed all the signage from on and around his Nepean campaign office. If you didn't know where it would be impossible to find. That's how they want it. They need to keep him insulated as much as possible. Can't have the pesky public figuring out where this guy really is. So here's Daisy just driving around Mark Carney's campaign office. It's easy, keep it this way so it's easy to just vacate it when he loses and then gives up leadership of the party and leaves because he doesn't actually want to be leader of the opposition. It's prime minister or bust for Carney, okay? Here we go.
This very nondescript building here. Yeah. So all the signs have been taken off this building, but if Denny slows down for a sec, slow down, Denny.
Oh, you can see it right in there.
Yeah.
You can see Mark Carney.
In the very inside. There you go.
Yeah, you can see it there.
Campaign office. So all of the signage has been taken down. There is nothing indicating that Mark Carney's campaign office is in here. But it is. If you look through the 3 layers of tinted glass, you can just make out the signs. It's interesting. Mark Carney has removed all the signage from his campaign office. What are you hiding, Carney?
Right? So it's interesting. I think it's to make it easy to get out. Right, run to Bermuda or Cayman Islands or wherever he's going to go and shelter his money from taxes and things. Bob Zimmer is making fun of Mark Carney's "I just got here" excuse at the debate. And so this is a bit of debate cleanup and fallout, news that takes a little bit of time to trickle out, right? And so Bob Zimmer has this from the Financial Post circa 2020, right? And the Financial Post on August 10th, 2020 says Mark Carney is helping Justin Trudeau craft economic recovery plan to pull Canada out of recession. Ambitious plans said to tackle everything from deficiencies in the social safety net to climate change, infrastructure, and immigration. Everything. It touches everything, right? And so Mark Carney says, I just got here? I just got here 5 years ago, and the plan that I implemented destroyed everything. Idiot. Honestly, it's one of those things. Brian Lilly says this was a very good segment from Poilievre. He pointed out in concrete ways how the Liberals have made communities less safe, and he spoke directly to Carney. Carney refused to look at Poilievre. That's a bizarre strategy, right? I'm not going to look at you anymore. Now, somebody, Gwen, on the Canada Poly chat, posted this and said, like, you should check this out. So this is Homath, and he does relationship stuff, like understanding what you think's happening in a relationship, or what's happening with you in a relationship, and the mental things that are going on between your kind of conscious brain, your feelings brain, and your responses brain. Like, you don't feel, you just respond, right? It's just like, boom, that's going to happen. And so he's going through PSYOPs, and it's an hour, and it's spot on. It is absolutely perfect. It's very, very good. And it goes through how media implants ideas into your head and basically brainwashes you without you realizing it. And he breaks it down in such a good way. But I've got a too long, didn't read at the end here. It's an hour and 4 minutes long. It's so worth the watch. At 2 times speed, it's half an hour long. So it's no time at all, nothing, right? Like a breeze flowing through the bank account. But you should watch it because it helps you understand how they're manipulating you, that they know they're manipulating you, and what they're doing specifically to manipulate you, and how to inoculate yourself against it. It's so worth it. I can't understate it enough. So thanks, Gwen, for sharing that. I appreciate it. Here's Pierre Poilievre talking about how communities are less safe. And just as a quick preamble, there was a woman, an international student, waiting for a bus stop, shot dead by stray bullets yesterday between 2 gangs or something to that effect. And this falls into the pattern of normalizing this behavior. So he goes through the playbook of what they do, and we're going to listen to it at the end of the segment here. But keep it in mind, because having people just shot and killed, and the media making a big scene about it, talking about it, it's actually part of the normalize escalation of reports. It says basically you hear about this happening. So it's happening to people in Toronto, but it's not very often, and it's pretty rare. And then it starts happening to people you know in your communities, right? And this is part of the normalization. So all of this happening is part and parcel of a plan to move us in a specific direction, right? And so it's very, very interesting. Here's Pierre Poilievre talking about how Mark Carney has made Canada less safe. Here we go. Or Mark Carney, the Liberal policies and so on and so forth. The guns, the failure of the gun bans, so on and so forth. Here we go.
No, we will use it to protect the charter rights of law-abiding Canadians. I'm interested in the rights of victims. Mr. Carney seems to be very interested in the rights of criminals. He says that it's dangerous for me to ensure that mass murderers stay behind bars for life. You know what's dangerous? Turning them loose on our streets. I don't think you appreciate, sir, the chaos that is unfolding in communities. In Toronto right now, the police have been forced to tell people to just let the thief steal the car. When they break into the house, just take the keys. Just let them take the keys so that you don't get hurt. People are living in terror in many of our communities precisely because of the catch and release bail law, C-75, which requires judges release the accused at the earliest opportunity under the least onerous conditions. Every single member of your Liberal caucus and your Liberal cabinet voted in favor of this bill, and they are all determined to keep it in place despite constant promises to the contrary. Mr. Carney, Canadians deserve to live in peace and security. That is the right that I'm fighting for a change. No.
So there you go, right? And in that vein, our communities are less safe. People are being shot, innocent bystanders are being shot and killed for no reason in places like Hamilton. Used to be a safe city, right? Steel town. Western Standard is reporting Blanchet calls out Carney. You're becoming a real Canadian leader, saying one thing in French and another thing in English. So Blanchet's funny, and I mean, he's funny, and he's quick-witted, and he's fun to have on the debate stage, for me, anyway. So here we go.
Monsieur Blanchet yet in this segment, so please.
Yeah, Mr. Carney, you are becoming a real Canadian leader, saying one thing in French and another one in English. You said in British Columbia in February that you would force oil and gas through pipelines through Quebec, either we wanted it or not. You would use emergency powers in order to do so. And 2 days later in Montreal, you said that you would never do that without the approval of Quebec. What's the point of using emergency powers if you do have the agreement of Quebec? However, I do agree with you. It's important to be very strong in front of Mr. Trump. However, I would keep the dollar for dollar policy. Don't be weak in front of Mr. Trump. And those counter tariffs have to be targeted. You have put out already $2 billion for Ontario auto industry, car industry, and the lumberwood industry in Quebec has already paid to United States $2 billion, and you have not raised one finger in order to help us.
The counter for counter or dollar for dollar counter tariffs, it's a bad idea. There's a company in Quebec that's trying to, that makes wood veneer countertops and things like that, like a stickable wood veneer thing, or veneer thing that's, I don't know if it's just wood, but he imports wood to make his product from the United States, and he's being hit with these tariffs. It hurts Canadians. It doesn't hurt Americans, I don't think. And so he's going to have to raise his costs or his price in order to offset that 25% hit he's been taking since March, because we put on those tariffs, Canada put on those tariffs in March. And any excuse to raise taxes on Canadians and these politicians promise that money to other people. Unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable. It's not good, right? It's not good. Viva Fry says, because some of you babies were complaining about my commentary, here's the native video of the exchange from last night's Canadian election prime minister debate that should, in the normal run of things, end Mark Carney's campaign. But who knows, maybe enough Canadians actually want to be ruled by a globalist. So here is Mark Carney finishing off with Blanchet, who's asking him to tell people what he owns. And I think that that's a good ask. And then I think we're going to watch the entire exchange between Poilievre and Carney. At Carney's shifty eyes, he doesn't look at Poilievre. His eyes shift all around, and it's really, it's weird to watch. The back and forth, Carney does not want to answer Poilievre's question. Poilievre's question is really, I think it's cuts to the quick, right? It's good. He takes a little bit to, he talks a lot in the preamble, but he gets there and whatever. We'll let him talk. But Carney never addresses the core of the question. Never. And that's shifty as all get out, right? Like, he can't answer a question, for crying out loud. He can't ever answer a question. So here's this. It's a medium long. I don't think it's 4 minutes, but probably 3. Here we go.
Always acted with integrity. Served the shareholders of Brookfield when I was there. I have left that. I have followed all the rules well in advance.
So let's
I have followed
reveal
all
your
the
assets.
rules well in advance.
Let's reveal your assets like we all did.
And working for the people of Canada.
What do you own? Why don't you tell Canadians and Quebecers what you own?
Monsieur Blanchet, we're moving on to Mr. Poilievre now, who has his opportunity to ask the question of whomever he'd like here, and that will be?
Mr. Carney, but if I could begin by setting the stage. The choice in this election is, after a lost Liberal decade of rising cost and crime and a falling economy under America's thumb, do we want to elect them to a 4th term? Or do we want to change? Change so that you can afford food and homes. Change so that you can be safe on your street, and change so that your paycheck grows faster than your cost of living. Change with a new Conservative government. Because Mr. Carney is not change. Mr. Carney, in 2020, it was recorded, you began advising Justin Trudeau. It's still on the Liberal Party website today that you are Justin Trudeau's economic advisor. They might want to update your website on that. On June 3rd of 2021, you said that inflation would be a sign of economic progress. And you advised governments, including Justin Trudeau's, your Liberal government, to print money, which led to the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now, that means that mothers went to bed with empty fridges and empty bank accounts, worried how they'd feed their kids, that seniors worried they'd be evicted from their homes, that young people believed they'd never be able to own a home in the first place. Now, in retrospect, that you look back on the Liberal decisions that you advised Justin Trudeau to take, will you look at the camera in the eye and apologize to the many people who suffered as a result of the inflationary policies that you advised Justin Trudeau to implement?
You know, I said earlier, but I'm going to say it again. I know you want to be running against Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau isn't here.
Are you denying you were his economic advisor?
I did not provide any of that advice. I did not.
So I was his economic advisor, but I didn't tell him to do the bad things. I didn't provide any of the advice that resulted in the inflation. Like, what? It's not a good answer. And the first thing he does is try to pivot away from the question entirely and say, I'm not Justin Trudeau. Well, you were his economic advisor, and then he tries to weasel out of it further.
Provide any of that
it's
advice.
On the Liberal Party website.
I'm sorry.
Are you accusing your Liberal Party of lying about your role? Because it says today you can go to the Liberal Party website now, and it says that you were Justin Trudeau's economic advisor.
The way you judge someone, in my view, is how they act, what they do when they have responsibility. Twice I was a central bank governor. And in both cases, if I may, in both cases when I was responsible for inflation, inflation was less than 2%. I'll add that when I was here responsible for the Bank of Canada, inflation was less than 2%. Our dollar was at parity. That is the kind of success that I can deliver for this country coming out of this crisis. And what is at stake here?
You were the economic advisor to Justin Trudeau that gave us the worst inflation that we have had in a generation, because the policies that you implemented and those of the MPs that are still in your ministry.
To the
fellow Canadians,
crisis which
the last 10 years has been about the Liberals. The next 10 years should be about you.
One of those people practiced scrums and practiced discussions with a combative panel and a combative host. Okay, one of those people didn't. Do you see which one? Poilievre did. He's polished. Carney is not. He kept repeating himself. He was not prepared. He didn't have a good answer. You don't need a good answer for Poilievre. You don't need an answer that's going to satisfy Poilievre. Screw Poilievre if you're prepping. You need an answer that's going to satisfy the audience, right? Your whole goal is not to best Poilievre necessarily, because besting Poilievre would win the debate. The whole goal for you is for anybody in a debate is to win the audience, right? Like, does he not understand his job? I guess I have no idea, but he sounds like he's going after another CEO, right? And saying like, I've got more experience here. Be quiet while the old men talk, right? But he doesn't understand the play here. He doesn't understand what's actually going on, where Poilievre does, and he goes after exactly what he needs to, and it's low hanging fruit because Carney just leaves it there because he keeps repeating himself. Gov.exe says Mark Carney led a disastrous debate in English and in French, yet his polymarket odds of winning have increased. Oh man, you have a terrible debate showing. And like, this was to the point almost where the Simpsons kid was saying like, stop beating him. He's dead already. Like, stop, please. Right? Like, it was a pummeling. This was an absolute pummeling up and down. Carney did not respond well. Poilievre wins that exchange handily. And what happens? Carney's numbers go up. Right? So is that legitimate? No, I don't think so. My gut tells me that there's something else going on here. And so I look into what else is going on here, right? Mark says Jagmeet Singh made a complete ass of himself at the debate. Non-stop interruptions, but only when Pierre Poilievre was speaking. Not one peep with Carney or Blanchette spoke, just Pierre. CBC should have turned his mic off. Total clown show. Here's 3 minutes of proof. Apparently and somebody, I didn't tag it, but somebody was saying Carney called Jagmeet Singh off, like waved his hand and said, it's okay. Like, don't, you know what I mean? So are they colluding? And was Jagmeet paid to do any of this? 3 minutes of Jagmeet interrupting. I've also got almost 2 minutes of Mark Carney saying, just from the debate. So that's funny. Like, honestly, and we're going to listen to it. Not the whole thing, but we're going to listen to it. And then, well, I don't want to ruin the surprise. Here's Jagmeet Singh interrupting. I haven't highlighted Jagmeet Singh much about this debate because he was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. This is all he did. He didn't make a cogent argument. He didn't have any really good answers. I haven't heard much from him other than interrupting nonsense, right? So
project.
Have no regulation.
Have one
have
stop
no
shop.
Mr. Singh,
over any energy.
We just got to let him finish his sentence.
Pollute.
Let's just let him finish his sentence.
That is not true. In multiple levels of
about the environment.
referral, it takes now 17 years to get a major project approved in this country. That is why in the last 10 years we've had the worst economic growth in the entire G7.
Bought a pipeline and
we
built
cannot
a pipeline.
afford
somebody
a fourth.
every time, like whenever I watch him do this, it doesn't seem like something he would do because like he's a lawyer, right? Isn't he a lawyer? And so the whole interrupting stuff, it seems not out of character, but he doesn't seem comfortable with it. He seems like he's trying to think of things to say to interrupt Poilievre, and it's not natural. Whereas I interrupt Greg all the time. I'm terrible. I have something I want to say, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I don't say this right now, I'm going to forget. And so I interrupt people because I'm going to forget if I don't say it. And like I have a little notepad, but then I feel bad because I look away and I'm typing the note to make sure I don't forget the thing that I want to respond. Like, because sometimes they say something and then 2 minutes later they've said two other things, and I want to respond to the two other things too, but I've forgotten what I want to say about the first thing. But the first thing was a banger, right? So sometimes I interrupt and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't stop myself. Right? That's not this. Jagmeet Singh's standing there and he's like, what can I say? What can I say? What can I say? And he comes up with nonsense and it's bullshit and it's not even interesting stuff, right? Like, and at least when I interrupt, I think it's interesting. But I guess, maybe he thinks it's interesting, but I don't think he even believes it. It's not interesting. It's just trying to interrupt for interruption's sake. Here is Mark, and he says, Sheila Gunn-Reid is asking Pierre Poilievre about free speech, and Poilievre's answer is good. But the other thing that I want you to notice here is a question was asked by a Rebel News reporter to a party leader, and a question was answered, and nothing bad happened. No danger whatsoever. And this couldn't happen during the English debate for reasons, but the only reason was because the debate commission wants to insulate Mark Carney and minimize the potential damage of any more missteps from, how many genders are there and things like that, right? 2, next question. Wrong answer, Mark Carney. Okay, here's the exchange between Sheila and Poilievre.
Sheila Gunn-Reid for Rebel News.
Yes.
We've seen the NDP tonight refuse to take questions from independent journalists. The Liberals have gone one step further. The Carney campaign has called the police on independent journalists. Trudeau before that brought in C-18, C-11. The Liberals are promising a revamped version of the Online Harms Act. What would a Conservative government do to ensure the independence of the press and protect Canadians' right to have access to information and hold their politicians to account?
We are the only party that's willing to protect freedom of the press, of all the media, and we will also repeal C-11, the censorship law. We will remove the censorship of Canadian news on web platforms like Facebook and Instagram, and we will fight back against any kind of Orwellian online censorship law like the one that the previous Liberal government instituted. It was designed to create the possibility of preemptive arrests of people, where you could be arrested if you were suspected of sometime in the future planning to say something harmful online. You could be under a peace bond. I mean, it really is Orwellian. And I note that many people across the spectrum have spoken out against this censorship. Even someone like Margaret Atwood, not known to be a conservative, has said that this kind of censorship is not only bad for democracy, but inhibits artistic expression. So I stand for free speech, and we will respect the right of Canadians to have access to the media that they choose.
Pretty robust response, and it's as robust a response as I've heard from him yet. So I haven't heard him be so explicit. He didn't talk to C18. He said C11, not C18. Interesting there too. Here's Sam Cooper. He says, considering these CBC journalists are either too stupid or too captured to get the biggest story of all, the corruption of Parliament by organized crime and foreign interference, I have zero sympathy for them. Yeah, democracy is fragile, and they have failed to understand the biggest threat. So this is Rosemary Barton and her acolytes talking about how Rebel News is the real threat here, and we should shut down all of their right-wing questions because right-wing people are mean and stuff. Stephen says CBC says journalists were made unsafe by right-wing activists. Democracy is fragile. Rage farming is toxic and disruptive to Canada's civic virtue. Oh, how dare you rage farm? That's free expression right up until rage farming. Okay, so that rage farming is illegal, but you can express yourself all you want unless that's rage farming.
Mr. Cormier said that they couldn't guarantee a proper and safe environment for the media. That is because the Commission allowed people who are not part of the media, who are right-wing activists, to come in that room and act as though they were members of the.
Hello, just wondering how many genders do you think there are? Right-wing activists. Oh, how dare you ask such a question? Right, like unbelievable. Rosemary is not happy. She was having none of this.
Media. It made for a very fraught environment, and there were a number of conflicts that led to the fact that this is where we ended up tonight.
Well, look, I don't want to litigate the specifics of it all, but I just want to say. Democracy is fragile, it's not guaranteed, and it has to be fought for and protected, not just on the big moments like leaders' debates, but on all the small moments in between. The rage farming that has gone into politics is corrosive, destructive, and toxic, and it is disrupting the norms and the values of civic virtue in this country, and it boiled over tonight. Temperature needs to come down.
Okay. All right. Thank you both. Rosie, we're going to see you again.
I think that it's very interesting that they're trying to get in front of this story and make sure this story has the right narrative. And again, this ties back into controlling the narrative, and controlling the narrative is part of the PSYOP playbook. They're going to tell you how this whole thing actually was, despite those lying eyes of yours, right? Here's... We'll wait for the oohs and ahs in just a minute. We can hold off on the oohs and ahs. Drea Humphreys is talking about what happened. She says, I've had some time to think about what I witnessed, both what actually happened behind the scenes with the media at the debates and what the legacy media has been reporting about it. The rebels were professional in there, despite being heckled, sworn at, assaulted, having paper thrown at us, berated, lied about, followed by the media regime's constant reporting. It was more like bullying. I mean, they're saying that we're not journalists, just far-right agitators or activists with a website who, ask questions they don't like? Meanwhile, they don't even pass the most basic ethical standards of journalism, reaching out to the subject of their report to verify facts. The only ones who did prior to the scrum being canceled, and after many reports went out with misinformation about us, were the other independent media. That's because the legacy media bullies hate us so much they don't want the facts. They wanted us gone, and they wanted our questions, the ones that hold the leaders to account, gone too. Because in a way, our questions held them to account as well. They penetrated the echo chamber that they've built with our tax dollars and exposed to some of their own consumers that there's been another side to the story that they've been selling. At first, after seeing some of their false claims they made about us both on camera and in person, I thought they were just flat out liars. But after having more time to digest and recap, I believe what the rebels just witnessed was mass psychosis. It's actually a PSYOP. It's a PSYOP, and I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to prove it to you when we get to that when we get to that tab. Not just the slow, drawn-out, boiling frog kind we saw during COVID, but an accelerated kind where they sense the grasp they once had is slipping as more and more of the public distrust their biased media. Someone has to pay for that. So they zoned in on the commission, who didn't want to keep breaking the law to keep us out, so they let us in. They came for the commissioner's blood, and they got it. So I'll just leave that there for the minute. But here is Zoltan, and he says, the question I planned for Mark Carney during the English debate was, do you regret recommending the Trudeau government unconstitutionally freeze bank accounts during COVID? When he brought in the riot police to remove us last night, I very conveniently got my answer. So here is Zoltan being escorted out.
Is this
Is this due to a security concern, or is that what's going on? Or is this just an intimidation tactic? Wait.
Look at all those cops.
A security thing, or is this an intimidation tactic?
Sécurité, mon ami. Bonne soirée.
I don't speak French.
Have a good evening. That's just security.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
You too.
It's 3 minutes long. We won't watch the whole thing there, but this is the preamble, and here's this is the one I thought it was. Sorry. Here's.
So we are outside of the CBC headquarters venue. I was trying to document the Rebel News folks being assaulted and basically dragged out of the building. So as a result, I also am not allowed back into the building. That's really all I have to report. The reasoning for there not being a debate scrum was a vague explanation of safety concerns. I don't really know what that means, given that the debate itself was remote. So if there was a safety concern in the media room, I don't understand why they couldn't have just kept the leaders separate from the media center and allowed independent media, or mainstream media, or anybody for that matter, from asking questions. So with that, Alex Zoltan signing up. So we are.
So there's that one, and then here's the rebel guys being intimidated on the street by police.
And make an arrest of a criminal. Could you please uphold your oath? Is it to serve and protect, or is it to shut down freedom of the press? I'm not harassing you.
Would not do anything. It's
It's unbelievable.
So Menzies is asking them to arrest. I guess somebody assaulted somebody, and they're saying, "Can you do your job? The people are going to get away." And the police, and there's a bunch of police. 1, 2, all sorts, 7, 10 police. And Menzies is saying they watched this and didn't do anything to stop it. So, like, that's pretty wild stuff. Richard says, as good a night as any to read my profile of Ezra Levant. So it's a National Post takedown of Ezra Levant, basically. And they're trying to say that Ezra is fringe. And Joe Warmington makes the case. He says, Ezra Levant has 500,000 more ex-followers than both of us, and double what Andrew Coyne and Rosie Barton have. That means he has many fans. With 1 million YouTube subscribers, he's not fringe, he's mainstream and bigger than his critics. His reporters were appropriately allowed into the debates and asked legit questions. Who was wrong were the people who heckled them and later allegedly assaulted them. Something the same media who ignored that would have called out had it been the other way around. There's room for Rebel in all the other media voices. There's no one reporter or outlet more superior or more important than another. And then he lists Carmaya, Rachel Gilmore, Right Blend, Kian, Dacey, Juno, Rebel. All are modern media players now. The audience has decided this. Many of their haters don't have their reach, and jealousy or snobbery or trying to block them won't change that. Rebel News went to Montreal to cover a story. Those who felt they were more important to them made them the story. But the election is the actual story, not the media covering it. Love your work, just my 2 cents. And so moving on from that, it's interesting, right? Like the media is trying to take control of the narrative by blaming Rebel News for the scrum not happening, and that's not true. Sheila Gunn-Reid says we're seeing the same kind of lies as during the convoy, where the people who are told to obediently trust the assessment from mainstream media and not what they can see for themselves on independent journalist videos. Dacey says that's exactly what got me started doing what I'm doing. I lived in downtown Ottawa in the red zone when the convoy arrived. Everything the media was saying was at complete odds with what I was witnessing with my own eyes. They were gaslighting us, and I wanted to show people. I'm going to keep showing people. Yep, me too. Here's the PSYOP. Here's the plan, the playbook, how the PSYOP works. And honestly, go watch this video. I can't believe we're already 45 minutes into my video. Holy smoke. Here we go.
Somebody wants to get away with something that isn't legal, or people would never go for it. So they have to get you to agree with it, and they fake all of this stuff. They normalize it. They set the stage. They make you afraid. They make you feel like you need rescue. And then they make it personal. Oh, this is happening to people like me every day. And then it's on the news constantly. You can't get away from it. And then there's a big event. Oh no, we need help right now. There's no time. And then the solution is what they wanted to get away with in the first place. And if
central bank digital currency, climate lockdowns, digital IDs.
If you understand how this works, then it doesn't work on you. You can remain vigilant. You can understand, this is the normalization phase. You can see it in the news now.
Exactly.
So this seems like a lot of work. It seems like a difficult thing to do. And there's always somebody who doesn't believe in conspiracies. There's always someone who says,
yeah, there's always that somebody. Here's Mark Carney. So honestly, go watch that whole video. He breaks it down in painstaking detail, talks about your brain and how they utilize your brain. Where's the brain? There it is. How they utilize your brain and narrative controlled storytelling to bypass your critical thinking and get right to your feelings, right? And so it's great stuff. Here's Mark Carney saying for longer than you want. We're not even halfway. We're not even like a quarter way through. That was 15 seconds. That was more than enough. The funny part about this is all just from one event. Like this is all just from the debate that just happened. So Mark Carney is a bad speaker, and he's bad. He's bad at everything that he's trying to do. Okay, we've got to say goodbye to the live stream. Sorry, everybody. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow. Easter. Hello, everyone. Thanks very much for watching. This is just a short version of a longer show. If you'd like to get the whole show, you can go over to CanadaPoly.com and sign up for a subscription. Just look in the drop-down tab for Shop and Donate and look for subscriptions, and you'll get immediate access to the full show. Love to see you. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful